Drowning in dense research papers? Deep Dive is where two AIs break down academic and market research, so you don't have to. From quant finance to AI policy to economic models, we translate it, explain it, and deliver what matters. Like, share, subscribe, knowledge should be accessible, not locked in PDFs. Fresh AI insights delivered regularly.
7% GDP boost globally, trillions added to the economy. Those are the kinds of numbers flying around about generative AI, things like ChatGPT. You've definitely seen the headlines. I mean, we all have.
Absolutely. It's everywhere.
But on this deep dive, we're trying to, cut through that. We're not chasing the hype.
Right.
We want to really crack open the economic engine of AI, look at what it's actually doing to jobs, to market power.
Exactly. Let's set aside the really big speculative numbers for a second.
Yeah.
Our mission here is to ground this whole conversation in, solid economic analysis. We're pulling directly from the latest research, OECD academic papers.
Think of it as getting the real signal amidst all the noise.
That's the idea, helping you understand AI's real-world impact based on evidence.
So this is your shortcut to being genuinely informed. We'll unpack the core economic mechanisms behind AI.
Look at the early evidence on productivity.
And confront the potential challenges, the bumps in the road. So by the end, you should have a much clearer evidence-based perspective, something that goes beyond just the buzzwords.
And the main sources we're leaning on today are an OECD paper. It's called The Impact of Artificial Intelligence on Productivity, Distribution, and Growth, and an academic paper, The Simple Macroeconomics of AI.
Okay, so we get a good mix there, policy view and the research perspective.
Exactly. It gives us a balanced view of the forces at play.
Okay, let's get into it then. When economists look at AI, what are they actually seeing? It's got to be more than just clever software, right?
Oh, definitely. From an economic lens, AI is really best seen as a new type of production technology.
Production technology, meaning?
Meaning it combines different inputs to create outputs. In this case, the inputs are largely intangible things like software, specialized skills, huge amounts of data. And you power all that with serious computing capacity.
Right.
And the outputs, they range from analytical tasks like forecasting or personalization to generating content. And even when you pair it with robotics, automating physical tasks.
So it's a new way to produce value, basically. Digital stuff, physical stuff.
Exactly.
But how is this different from, say, computers arriving on the scene? Or the internet? Weren't those big shifts too?
They absolutely were. And like computers and the internet, AI heavily impacts cognitive tasks, information processing, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
But the research points to a couple of really key differences this time around.
Aren't they?
First, AI has the potential for much greater autonomy, independence, and maybe even self-improvement without constant human tweaking.
Ah, the whole learning aspect.
Precisely. These systems can learn and adapt in ways previous tech really couldn't.
Okay, so more autonomy. What's the second big difference?
The second one, and this is potentially even more profound, is that AI is starting to look like a method of invention itself.
A method of invention?
Yeah.
Hang on. So not just a tool, but something that helps us create new tools.
That's the idea. Think about steam power or electricity. They gave us new energy, new processing power. AI, on the other hand, might actually accelerate the rate at which we innovate, discover new things altogether.
Wow.
Yeah, surveys of researchers in various fields show they increasingly expect AI to be crucial for future breakthroughs in their work. We're seeing early signs in drug discovery, material science.
So AI helping us invent the future faster. Is there actual data on this, not just researcher surveys?
There is. If you look at patent citations, how often a patent is referenced by later inventions. AI-related patents tend to get cited much more broadly across different tech fields compared to non-AI patents.
Meaning their influence is wider?
Exactly. It suggests AI isn't just improving existing stuff. It might be acting as a catalyst for entirely new technological avenues.
Okay, that is a potential game changer. Beyond just efficiency, it's changing how innovation itself happens.
Precisely.
All right, so you have a clearer picture of what AI is, economically speaking, and its potential to drive innovation. But what about the here and now? What's the early evidence on productivity? Are we actually seeing those big efficiency boosts yet?
Well, if you zoom in to the micro level, individual firms, specific jobs, certain tasks, the initial signs do point towards some pretty significant performance gains.
Okay.
Studies in places like France, Germany, and also broader multi-country analyses, they're finding a positive link between firms adopting AI and their productivity, even when you control for other IT use.
Can you give us some real-world examples? Where are we seeing these boosts?
Sure. Think about call centers agents using AI tools are reportedly becoming more efficient.
Right.
We're seeing consultants delivering higher quality work with AI assistance. There are even surveys showing positive impacts on how people feel about their job performance, maybe even their enjoyment or mental well-being in some cases.
Interesting.
And it's important to note, a lot of these early wins seem to be coming from non-generative AI applications.
Okay, so not just the ChatGPT style stuff.
Not necessarily. For instance, one study on call centers found that less experienced agents actually saw much bigger productivity jumps with AI assistance than their more senior colleagues did.
That's fascinating. So AI acting almost like a leveler, helping newer folks catch up faster.
Potentially, yeah. Within that specific role, at least.
And it's not just confined to service jobs, right? We're seeing this elsewhere.
No, definitely not. Early adoption and significant potential are showing up in sectors like pharmaceuticals, speeding up drug discovery.
Makes sense.
Aerospace, for developing new materials. Finance, hedge funds, using it for better decision-making. Even in more traditional industries like semiconductors, mining, construction.
So pharmaceuticals is a big one.
Yeah, the pharma sector, especially R&D, is projected to see pretty substantial value increases thanks to generative AI specifically.
Okay, so micro-level gains seem promising, but you mentioned earlier there's some caution, some uncertainty about the aggregate productivity gains, the big picture.
Right.
Why is that? Shouldn't all these small wins just add up?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe $1 trillion, given the hype. History shows us that the link between big tech breakthroughs and overall economic productivity isn't always direct or immediate.
We've had tech booms without huge productivity booms.
Exactly. We've had periods of rapid tech change followed by surprisingly sluggish overall productivity growth. There's this concept called the productivity J-curve.
J-curve.
Yeah. The idea is that new technologies often need big upfront investments that don't pay off right away. Investments in things that are hard to see, like new skills, changing how companies are organized, developing complementary tech.
So we might be undercounting the initial costs or the time needed?
That's part of it, especially because a lot of AI investment is intangible things, software, data pipelines, new business processes. These are harder to measure than, say, building a new factory.
Okay.
And beyond that, there are several big factors that will decide if these firm-level productivity gains actually translate into widespread economic growth for everyone.
Like what are the potential roadblocks?
Well, one big one is diffusion. Will the productivity boosts seen in leading firms, the early adopters, actually trickle down or spread out to the rest of the economy?
Will it spread? What else?
Another is how AI changes the labor market. Automation versus creating new tasks. Will the net effect be positive for overall productivity? Or could we see something like the Baumol disease?
Baumol disease, that's the idea that jobs shift to sectors where productivity growth is naturally slower.
Right, exactly, like certain service industries. If AI pushes more labor there, overall growth might be dampened, even if AI helps within those sectors.
Interesting. So reallocation matters a lot.
Hugely. And then there's the societal angle. Will concerns about risks, ethics, job losses lead to regulations or pushback that slows down AI development and deployment?
Right, the whole governance piece.
It all feeds in.
And you mentioned intangibles, earlier skills, software. What about data? That's the fuel for AI, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. But intangible capital, especially the vast amounts of proprietary data many AI systems rely on, is kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, yeah, it boosts efficiency like crazy for the firms that have it. On the other hand, precisely because so much valuable data is privately owned, it could actually hinder the spread of innovation. It might slow down overall productivity growth if key insights are locked up.
Wow, that's a twist.
Yeah.
The very thing that makes AI powerful could limit its overall benefit.
It's a definite possibility. Some research even hints that the rising importance of proprietary data might have played a role in the productivity slowdown we've already seen in some advanced economies recently.
Okay, that's a really crucial point. So, given all this uncertainty, what are the long-term growth forecasts looking like? Are economists optimistic or pessimistic?
Well, as always, economists disagree.
Naturally.
You've got some, looking at history, who predict continued moderate productivity growth, maybe around 1% a year in places like the U.S. standard stuff.
Okay.
But others argue that AI is fundamentally different, that its impact will be deeper and more sustained. they see potential for persistently faster innovation and economic expansion, not just a one-off bump.
And a lot depends on how well AI works with people, right?
That's a huge factor, yes.
Yeah.
How quickly and effectively AI complements human skills.
Let's dig into that interaction with labor more. It's obviously not just about robots taking jobs, like in the old sci-fi movies.
No, it's much more nuanced.
The research talks about AI being both a complement and a substitute. Can you unpack that?
Sure. AI can complement human labor, basically, make us better or faster at the tasks we already do. Think of a writer using AI to help with research or drafting.
Enhancing our abilities.
Exactly. But it can also substitute for human labor, meaning it takes over entire tasks that people used to do. That's the automation aspect.
Right.
And both of these complementing and substituting can drive productivity gains in the sectors where they happen.
But what about the classic argument? New tech always creates new jobs eventually. Does that still apply here?
That's been a really powerful counterbalancing force historically, absolutely. Computers, the internet, they definitely created entirely new job categories, many of them high-skilled and well-paid.
So maybe AI will too.
It likely will create new tasks and roles. However, there's a lurking possibility this time. What if future AI advancements become capable of automating even those newly created tasks?
So the cycle might speed up, or AI might eventually automate the jobs it creates.
It's a possibility we need to consider. The end game isn't clear yet.
Okay, so which kinds of tasks seem most vulnerable to automation by AI right now, based on the research?
The evidence suggests that knowledge-intensive activities are increasingly in the crosshairs.
Knowledge work. Like what?
Things like R&D, ICT roles, finance, professional services, sectors previously thought somewhat immune to automation.
What makes those tasks susceptible now?
The common factor seems to be whether a task can be clearly defined, broken down into steps, and executed without needing to constantly solve ambiguous, fuzzy problems, or collaborate deeply with others, or crucially, critically validate the output.
So if it's well-defined, even if it's complex knowledge work, AI can potentially handle it.
Increasingly, yes. But what about the known limitations? Generative AI, for example, can be unreliable. It makes stuff up, those hallucinations.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty big barrier for some jobs.
It absolutely is. That unreliability, especially in critical, high-stakes fields, think doctors, judges, engineers, means there will likely remain a strong need for human oversight, verification, a human in the loop that prevents full automation in many key roles for the foreseeable future.
Right. Need someone to check the AI's homework, essentially.
You could put it that way, yes.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly. How fast is AI actually spreading? We see ChatGPT everywhere. It feels like an explosion. Is that reflective of the whole economy?
Well, AI development certainly accelerated dramatically in the 2010s. It was driven by huge jumps in computing power and, of course, the explosion of data available to train models on.
And we see that in patent trends.
Clearly, patent applications related to AI technologies just surged. But development is one thing, adoption is another.
And adoption is slower.
Generally, yes. While development is highly concentrated geographically, think US and China mainly, the actual adoption of AI across the broader economy tends to be more gradual. That's pretty typical for these big general-purpose technologies, or GPTs.
Why the lag? If the tech is powerful, why aren't companies jumping on it faster?
Several reasons. As we touch on with the J-curve, these GPTs usually need significant complementary investments.
Right, the hidden costs.
Exactly. Specialized software, upgrading data infrastructure, often fundamental changes to business processes. That all takes time, effort, and money. It's not just plug and play.
So it's about getting the whole ecosystem ready, not just the AI tool itself. What are the biggest specific bottlenecks right now?
Key ones include having a robust digital infrastructure, sure. Access to enough computing power, particularly those specialized chips, the GPUs.
Yeah, we hear about GPU shortages.
Right. But maybe the biggest hurdle is the skills gap. Finding enough people who can actually develop, implement, maintain, and even effectively use these advanced AI systems.
The talent bottleneck.
It's huge. The demand for technical expertise in top AI jobs is way higher than for comparable non-AI roles.
And this AI talent, it's not evenly spread out, is it?
Not at all. AI skills are highly concentrated. Occupationally, sectorally, mostly in knowledge-intensive services, and some manufacturing, and definitely geographically, clustered in existing innovation hubs.
So Silicon Valley and similar places.
Pretty much. And interestingly, something like non-compete clauses in employment contracts might actually be making these skill shortages worse.
How so?
By making it harder for talent to move around, potentially stifling the creation of new AI startups that could challenge incumbents.
That's an interesting wrinkle. And are there big differences between countries in terms of AI skills?
Oh, definitely. The data shows a pretty significant gap. The U.S., for instance, has a much higher proportion of its workforce with AI-related skills compared to the OECD average.
Okay, this concentration of development of skills, the need for data and computing power, it sounds like it could really shake up market competition.
Absolutely. The research flags this as a major concern,
What's the worry?
that AI could basically pour gasoline on existing problems in digital markets. Things we've already seen with big online platforms over the last 10, 20 years.
Like what? Market concentration.
Exactly. Market concentration, high barriers for new companies trying to enter, and the potential for dominant firms to abuse their power. AI could make all of that worse.
How does AI specifically fuel that concentration? What are the mechanisms?
Several features of AI inherently favor early movers and large scale. Strong network effects are one, the more data and users an AI system has, the better and more valuable it becomes, creating a virtuous cycle for the leader.
Like social media platforms.
Very similar dynamic. Also, huge economies of scale, both in acquiring the massive data sets needed for training and in attracting the scarce, expensive AI talent.
So big gets bigger faster.
Pretty much. And this can lead to the emergence of powerful gatekeeper AI firms. Companies that control crucial layers of the AI, stack the foundational models, the massive data sets, the cloud infrastructure.
And that gives them immense power over the ecosystem.
Potentially, yes. They can influence the direction of innovation, maybe disadvantage competitors who rely on their platforms or models.
What are the potential harms for the rest of us consumers, smaller businesses?
Well, one concern revolves around algorithmic recommendation systems used by dominant platforms.
Like YouTube recommendations or Amazon suggestions.
Exactly. As these get more sophisticated with AI, they can heavily shape consumer choices, potentially limiting exposure to rivals and maybe reducing overall consumer welfare, especially if they start using hyper-personalized pricing.
Charging different people different prices for the same thing.
Potentially. There are also worries about killer acquisitions,
Where big companies buy startups just to shut them down.
or just to absorb their talent and tech before they become a threat. It can stifle innovation. This is why things like open-source AI alternatives are seen as really important. They could provide a check on the power of dominant proprietary systems.
Okay, so market power is a big one. But the research also mentions other ways AI could distort markets. Something called so-so automation.
Yes, that's an interesting concept. So automation refers to using AI to automate tasks in ways that don't actually produce significant productivity gains.
Automating just for the sake of it. Or maybe cutting labor costs without improving output.
Kind of. It might displace workers, often lower skilled ones, without delivering much societal benefit, and could potentially even harm consumers if service quality drops, for example. And beyond that, AI's ability to analyze behavior and personalize interactions opens the door to exploiting our cognitive biases at scale.
Oh.
Think manipulative advertising, personalized nudges, dynamic pricing designed to maximize extraction rather than value. Basically, twisting consumer demand in ways that benefit the seller, not necessarily the buyer.
That sounds unsettling. AI used for large-scale manipulation.
It's a risk that needs serious attention. And think about financial markets. If everyone starts using similar AI trading models, could that lead to more herd behavior, more instability?
Following the same signals, leading to crashes or bubbles.
Potentially amplifying them? Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's the collusion risk.
Collusion. Companies fixing prices.
Tacit collusion, perhaps. AI-powered pricing algorithms could make it much easier for firms to monitor competitors' prices in real time and adjust their own accordingly, leading to parallel pricing, everyone charging high prices without any explicit illegal agreement.
Wow, so AI could make anti-competitive behavior harder to detect.
It certainly presents a challenge for antitrust regulators. It's harder to prove collusion when it's just algorithms seemingly reacting to market data.
Okay, this market impact is clearly complex. What about innovation itself? The research mentioned potential issues with intellectual property.
Right. This is a huge can of worms, legally speaking. Modern AI, especially foundation models, are trained on absolutely massive data sets, much of it scraped from the internet.
Including copyrighted material, text, images.
Almost certainly, yes.
Yeah.
A vast amount of it is copyrighted. The legal question is whether using this material for training AI falls under fair use or similar exceptions.
And that's not settled.
Far from it. There are major lawsuits ongoing. This legal uncertainty could really dampen incentives for creators, writers, artists, musicians, even software developers if they feel their work can just be ingested by AI models without permission or compensation.
It's a tough balance. You want to enable AI development, but you also need to protect creators.
Exactly. Finding the right copyright regime is crucial. There are different proposals being debated, like systems where AI training is allowed, but creators might get compensated later if their work is used significantly or commercially.
What about AI being used to copy innovations?
That's another concern. The potential for AI to rapidly reverse engineer innovative products or processes could also reduce the incentive to invest in R&D in the first place.
So IP is a minefield. And this ties into the broader safety and ethics debates, too.
Yes. All these complexities, plus the more existential safety concerns around highly advanced AI, have led to calls from some researchers and policymakers to perhaps pause development or at least coordinate much more strongly on safety research internationally.
Okay, let's pivot to maybe the most critical question for many people. Inequality. How is AI likely to impact jobs, wages, and the gap between rich and poor?
This is incredibly important and incredibly complex. AI's effects will likely vary a lot depending on your occupation and the specific tasks you perform.
We talked about knowledge workers being affected now.
Right. Whereas older automation waves hit routine manual tasks hardest. Generative AI can tackle tasks involving creativity, comprehension, reasoning. That potentially impacts a much wider slice of the workforce, including many higher-skilled jobs.
But maybe not full replacement in all cases.
Probably not, especially in those high-stakes professions like medicine or law we mentioned. There, it's more likely to be augmentation AI assisting the professional rather than full automation, at least for now.
There was some early optimism, maybe from that call center study, that Gen AI might help lower-performing workers catch up, an equalizing effect.
Yes, there is some initial evidence suggesting an equalizing effect within certain occupations. AI tools might help less experienced workers perform tasks closer to the level of top performers in that same role.
But does that translate to less inequality overall between different jobs or education levels?
That's much less clear. The evidence so far is mixed. While AI might narrow gaps within a specific job, it doesn't necessarily seem to be reducing inequality across different occupations or skill groups. The impact on the overall wage structure is still a big unknown.
So the jury is very much out on overall wage inequality.
Absolutely. Past waves of digital tech have often been linked to increased income inequality. Whether AI breaks that pattern or reinforces it is a massive question.
And the biggest fear for many is just mass unemployment, right?
That's the starkest scenario. If AI leads to huge productivity gains, but the overall demand for goods and services doesn't rise enough to match, then yes, widespread job losses are theoretically possible.
But the counterargument is new job creation.
Right. History suggests technology often creates new demands and entirely new job categories we can't even imagine yet. The crucial uncertainty is the balance: will job destruction outpace job creation this time? And even if overall employment holds up, we might see a shift in income distribution.
How so?
A potential increase in the share of national income going to capital accounts to the owners of the AI systems and related assets rather than to labor. That could worsen wealth inequality even if unemployment doesn't skyrocket. Plus, potential erosion of the tax base if labor income shrinks relative to capital income.
Okay, lots of potential downsides. Are there any potential upsides for inclusion or helping disadvantaged groups?
There are potential positives. AI could, in theory, enable more personalized education tailored to individual needs. It might improve access to credit or financial services for people previously excluded.
But there are risks there too.
Big risks. Unequal access to digital skills and the technology itself could easily widen existing divides. And a huge concern is bias baked into AI systems.
Bias, because of the data they're trained on.
Exactly. If the training data reflects existing societal biases, the AI can perpetuate or even amplify them. We've seen examples of this in facial recognition being less accurate for certain demographic groups, or biased outcomes in hiring algorithms or loan applications. This could disproportionately harm already disadvantaged groups.
So how AI is built and governed is absolutely critical for fairness.
Crucial. It will determine whether AI becomes a tool for greater inclusion or deeper division.
And does this play out differently across countries? Will AI widen the global north-south divide, for example?
That's a serious concern. AI development is incredibly concentrated right now, mainly US and China.
Right.
Adoption rates will also likely vary a lot based on factors like wage levels, Lower wages mean less incentive to automate, but also on prerequisites like digital infrastructure, skills availability, data access, even language biases in AI models.
So less developed countries might struggle to adopt and benefit.
It could definitely lead to a very uneven distribution of AI's productivity benefits globally, potentially widening existing gaps in GDP per capita.
Okay, this paints a picture of, well, enormous potential mixed with really significant risks and challenges. What does this all mean for policymakers? What should governments be doing?
It's a massive policy agenda, and it's evolving fast. A key priority has to be fostering market competition.
Preventing those gatekeepers from dominating.
Exactly. Ensuring broader access to AI tech while still keeping strong incentives for innovation. That's a tricky balance.
What else?
Addressing the labor market impacts is huge. Investing strategically in retraining, education, modernizing social safety nets to handle potential job displacement and rising inequality.
And managing the risks.
Definitely. Proactively tackling bias in AI, combating AI-enabled misinformation, strengthening privacy protections. These are all critical for public trust and safety.
How do you even govern a technology that moves this fast?
That's the core challenge. It requires new governance mechanisms, probably involving both national regulation and much stronger international cooperation. Some researchers suggest focusing governance efforts on the computing infrastructure, the hardware powering AI, as a potential control point.
Regulating the chips and data centers.
It's one idea being floated. We also clearly need to review and adapt existing laws, competition law, IP law, for the AI age.
Can AI itself help with regulation?
Potentially. AI tools might actually help regulators detect things like that algorithmic collusion we talked about, or identify biased systems. Enhancing transparency and auditability of AI systems is also going to be key. People need to understand at some level how these systems are making decisions that affect them.
Okay. The research also drew an interesting line between easy and hard tasks for AI. Can you elaborate on that? What's the significance?
Yeah, this is quite insightful. It suggests that most of the productivity gains we've measured so far have come from AI tackling what you might call easy-to-learn tasks.
Easy for the AI, you mean?
Right. Tasks where there's a clear link between an action and an outcome, and where success is relatively easy to measure objectively. Think drafting a simple email, transcribing speech, classifying images based on clear criteria.
Okay, straightforward mapping. What are the hard tasks then?
These involve much more complexity, ambiguity, context. Situations where defining success is difficult, where performance metrics are scarce or subjective, and where AI often needs to learn by observing nuanced human expert behavior in messy, real-world contexts, not just from clean data.
Examples.
Think about a skilled electrician troubleshooting a complex intermittent fault in a building's wiring, or a doctor diagnosing a rare disease with ambiguous symptoms, or a scientist designing a truly novel experiment.
So, tasks requiring deep intuition, adaptability, judgment in fuzzy situations.
Exactly. And the implication is, well, if future AI progress relies more on tackling these much harder to learn tasks, the pace of aggregate productivity growth might slow down.
Because the low-hanging fruit, the easy tasks, will have been picked.
Precisely. The really impressive gains we've seen in things like large language models have often been on tasks where huge amounts of text data provide relatively clear learning signals. Tackling complex, real-world physical or social problems might be a much tougher nut for AI to crack effectively. We might be overestimating future gains if we extrapolate too much from the easy wins.
That's a really important dose of realism. And finally, the research mentions something slightly ominous, the potential for bad new tasks created by AI.
Yes, this is a crucial point often missed in purely economic analyses focused on GDP.
What are bad new tasks?
These are activities enabled or made much more efficient by AI that actually have negative social value, even if they generate economic activity.
Like what?
Think about the mass creation of sophisticated deepfakes for misinformation or fraud. Developing highly personalized, manipulative advertising that exploits vulnerabilities. Designing addictive social media algorithms purely to maximize engagement time, potentially harming mental health. Or creating more potent tools for cyber attacks.
So things that might show up as revenue or spending in GDP figures.
Exactly. They can contribute to measured economic activity. A company selling deepfake software makes money. More effective advertising boosts sales.
But the overall impact on society, on well-being, could be negative.
Precisely. The social media example is a good illustration. Platforms might use AI to drastically increase user engagement and ad revenue at GDP positive. But if this comes at the cost of widespread anxiety, polarization, or reduced real-world interaction, overall human welfare might decline.
So we need to look beyond just GDP growth when assessing AI's impact.
Absolutely. We need a broader conception of progress and well-being. That 7% global GDP boost, even if it materialized, might mask underlying cost if a chunk of it comes from these bad new tasks.
Right, that's a critical perspective. Okay, so wrapping this up, a key takeaway from this deep dive seems to be that AI presents this incredible duality. Huge opportunities, yes, but intertwined with really complex challenges and considerable uncertainty.
Definitely. The hype often focuses on revolutionary gains, but a closer look at the economic evidence paints a much more nuanced picture. Initial productivity gains are real in some areas, but the path to broad, sustained, and equitable benefits is far from guaranteed.
And we really need to grapple with these complexities, the difference between easy and hard tasks for AI, the potential for market concentration, the inequality impacts, and this unsettling idea of bad new tasks.
Understanding these dynamics is crucial.
It really underscores the need for careful thought about how we develop and deploy this technology.
Absolutely. And for you listening, if you want to keep digging deeper, we really recommend checking out the full OECD report and that academic paper, The Simple Macroeconomics of AI, that we've been drawing on.
Yeah, they provide a lot more detail. Consider the policy questions we've raised. How do we steer AI towards benefiting everyone and mitigate those significant risks? It's an ongoing conversation.
It really is, and your input matters.
So what surprised you most about the potential economic impacts of AI we discussed today? Or what questions are still on your mind? We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts.
It's a conversation that's really just getting started, and thinking critically about it is more important than ever.
Still here? Then you're not just scrolling. You're searching for substance. This isn't just another quant podcast. It's AI translating complexity into clarity, so smart ideas reach smart minds. Like, share, subscribe, join the thinkers, skip the noise. Let's make research accessible, together. Liked how that paper got decoded? We've spent 20+ years turning machine learning and AI into real-world tools, not just slide decks. Whether you want to implement a model, validate research, or build something from scratch, we can help. Explore our showcases to see it in action. Visit our site or contact us directly. Let's turn complex ideas into working intelligence together.